the final one is, hi. We have two people from Libis, not Libris, but Libis from the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium.
There's another one there.
Okay.
There are Naeem, Mohammed, and some Alloing. Yes. They work at Libis, so they're just like Libris in Sweden, the IT service center for the Catholic University of Leuven. They also manage a lot of, I know they manage a lot of ex-Libris systems. They're going to talk about a very interesting topic, again, for all of us. And the title is already the content. It's a project called Metadata Interoperability Framework. So it's about mapping and moving data from one region to one group system to another, etc. There is a proposal. So, if you're all set up, then we can start.
It was changing.
It was changing.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
There we go. Okay.
No, it's not anymore.
Okay, button.
Try the other one. Try the other one. Yeah, we are doing a demo, so we want to do it on our own machine.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So we are going to talk about the work we did on the mapping and transformation service for Europeana Insight. So first, a little bit about who we are, about the project Europeana Insight, and about the mapping and transformation service we created there. And we will do a demo of the transformation service and the mapping service. And we will talk a little bit about the future of the service. So first a bit about Libis. We are part of the University of Leuven, and we are a service provider for libraries, museums and archives. And we are with 19 team members, Naeem and me are of course included. And then a little bit about Europeana Insight. It's a technical project in Europeana where we have different partners, the content providers and technical partners, the software providers. And the goal is to create an easy, a better integrated way to deliver content to Europeana. Because now people need to export the metadata and talk to their software vendors to get the data out of their systems in the right format and put it back in Europeana. And now the goal of the Europeana Insight project is to create a component that developers of the different systems can add in their own content management systems. And that will talk to a central core part that will go to Europeana. I will talk a little bit more about that later on. But the project is 30 months, as you can see, and it will finish in September of this year. And of course, another goal is to deliver content to Europeana. A special topic in Europeana Insight as well is the content re-ingestion. That means that the content that is sent to Europeana is enriched by Europeana and will come back to the content providers themselves, so they can ingest it in their own system and can use it in their own system. This topic is being developed right now, but we are seeing that there are lots of problems there, and we have a lot to learn still there. For example, the metadata that comes back from Europeana is enriched, but the enrichments aren't always correct. So the content providers actually don't want to take the data back. So they say, no, it's enriched, but there are possibly some mistakes, so we don't want to take it back. So that's something that we learned in the project. This is how an image from how the content flows. The content goes from the institutions themselves to Europeana, like you see, and the enriched content will come back. Oops, and that was too quickly. So I talked about the ECK, and here you see the general overview of the ECK. It's not important to be able to read everything on the slide, but the main part is that you have a central ECK system that has different services that technical providers use to talk to. Well, they talk to the central part, and they use that to transform and push data to Europeana. That is at the right of the slide. And the ECK local is a part that they can integrate in their own system, and that's the part that they use in their own system to talk to the ECK core. So these are the services that are developed during the Europeana Insight project. The first one is just the definition of the metadata formats that are supported. The set manager is a storage layer where some information can be stored. For example, the statistics are stored there. We also have a PID generation service, but unfortunately it's not that useful. The only thing it does is you send it 3 parts of a string and it just returns the string completely, so that's not very useful. And then we also have a preview service. That's the same preview you see. Well, if it's the same view as you see on Europeana, but then before it's published in Europeana, so you can see what your records will look like in Europeana. The next one is validation service. That's just validation of metadata. Now it validates Lido and Idiom. The next one is the data push service. That's also actually an experiment we did during the project. We want to, and the users want to push data to Europeana instead of Europeana getting the data with data pull. But we were able to implement the data push based on the Swartz protocol in the ECK core, so the ECK local can push data to the ECK core. But Europeana doesn't want to implement data push because they are afraid of scalability issues, so that part is still data pull. And then last but not least, the mapping and transformation service that I will talk about after just a little. I wanted just to show what we did for the ECK local. So we don't have our own system. We use others vendor system. For the museum part, we use collective access, and because this is an open source product, we also use it in Europeana Insight. And we developed a plugin for that. Naeem will demonstrate that. That we call Libis code. It stands for Libis content delivery to Europeana, I think. And it supports now Lido and Mark. And in the future maybe we will add EAD for archives. And how can you use it? These are 2 scenarios. We just use the first one, where we have a central collective access with Libis code, where you can put your data in, and you can talk to the ECK core with the services you see below here. These are the services. Yeah, and then you can talk to. You can send your data to Europeana. You see also the arrow back, but that's not implemented yet. That's one scenario that you can use. We chose that scenario because if you want to send data back from Europeana to our system, then you have control over what you actually take in from Europeana and what you leave out. Because our users also say, well, we don't need all that information back. some is interesting, but some is not. So that's why we implemented it like that. You can also use a second scenario if you have your own collective access system, but then you have a little bit more work, because we of course now do the conversion from the collective access database to MARC, for example, in our case. We do that ourselves. We created that as part of the plugin, but in a second scenario you have to do it, of course, yourself. Okay, now the mapping and transformation service. So yeah, it transforms one metadata format into another, and you can use a mapping file to specify how the input format needs to be converted to the output format. And if you don't use a mapping file, you're of course using the transformation service itself, and that's just a XSLT that is executed. Now we support MARC to EDM and Lido to EDM, because yeah, these were the formats that are used in the Europeana Insight project. We created this service because yeah, the whole ECK is a service-oriented architecture, and it needed to fit in there. And we also had to support different formats. In the beginning there was also talk about EAD, but nobody had EAD in the project, so we didn't develop it yet. But yeah, we needed to be able to support multiple formats. So now I will talk a little bit about the service and what it needs, and then Naeem will show it to you, how it actually works. So the service needs an input file. It's MARC or Lido right now, and you can also use a mapping rule file. And what comes out of it right now is EDM. That's the Europeana format that is RDF based. It also has different classes. You have the core classes, like you see, provided CHO, aggregation, and web resource, and then there are extra classes for person, for place, and concept. And this is how what the mapping rules look like. I hope you can see it. Yeah, it's fine. So the first part of the line is the command what you want to do. In this case, it's copying from 001 to DC identifier, because EDM uses Dublin core and EDM fields in a format. You don't see any indicators here because we didn't need it in the project, so we didn't develop it yet, but if it's needed we can add it, of course. Because we wanted to keep the syntax as simple as possible, so so it would be easy for the user to enter. We also have an append command, as you see in the third line, where the 245 is appended to the DC title. And you see 2 commas. That is not a mistake. That's just to say you have to append it. You don't have to add an extra character to separate the two. And the last line in this example is just putting a value inside an Europeana field. What we also wanted to do is make the EDM format as easy as possible for the users to use. So what I told you that there are different classes in EDM, and you also have links between these classes. So the user needs to understand a little bit about EDM if they normally want to use EDM. But we wanted to make it as simple as possible at that end as well. So we only ask them to provide us the EDM field, and the software that we create will try to find the correct place. For example, in the first 4 lines, these rights fields are actually provided CHO, so these fields, this metadata goes to the provided CHO DC writes. You will see the example in Naeem's demo. And the last two are, well, the last one actually is about a web resource. So, so we know that this needs to be put in the web resource class and not in the provided CHO. So, we also support Lido, but that's not as easy to read, I'm afraid, as Mark, because we cannot have a concise way to represent the whole structure. So because the element names are repeated in different different places, so we cannot know which metadata field you're talking about. Here in the example, it's term. Yeah, if you have term, you have term all over the place in Lido, so we cannot know that. So we have to add the complete path. But here, yeah, it's just copying some fields to the right EDM field. Okay, now a bit about the commands. You saw already a copy and append. The next one is split. That is just splitting a value. You see in the example again here 2 commas. That means that it will split on. Well, it's a comma space comma actually, so it will split on space. The display material tag will go in medium, and if there is a space in there, it will be repeated. The DC terms medium, I mean. And then you also have combine. That's combining two fields. In this example, it will combine term and Lido rec ID into DC title. You also have limit to limit the number of characters in a field. In this field, its inscription transcription will go to Idiom description, and it will be limited to 9. Although Idiom description is not a field, but that's just a mistake. And then you have put. We already saw that just puts a value inside Idiom data provider. And the next one is replace. It's just replacing a value, a string in the metadata field with another string. In this example, it will be legal body name. D'histoire will be replaced with history, and it will go to EDM provider. And to make more possible, we also added conditions. So you can in event type, if the production is if in the event type there is a production, then you have to combine the term and the Lido rec ID in title, and you can make some nice complicated mapping rules if you want to. So it's a web service that we created, like I said, so there is no user interface, although Naeem will show you Libby's code as an interface to make it easier, and he also uses a REST client to show the difference. But there is no user interface, only for the web service. And that's part of the URL, just to show that we also have provider and batch, so you can separate, you can add some information so you can find your material later on. Some other parameters that you will see in the demonstration is record. Then we can there we can add a zip file with multiple XML files, or one XML with multiple records. That is what you can send to the service, and that is what it will convert. If you include the mapping rule file, you get the mapping rule files you specified will be executed. If you don't use the mapping rule file, then just the transformation service will be called, and that's a default XSLT. And of course, you also need to say which formats that you're sending us. So at the input side, we support Lido and Mark, and at the output, we support EDM. And the web service will give you a response. It will send you an ID back, so you can fetch the results afterwards. It will be using the status to know if it's, or you can use the status to know if the transformation is finished. And some other smaller commands we added is, of course, status and fetch to download it, and list to know the metadata formats that are supported right now. So, and then it's up to Naeem.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Well, there are three possibilities to use this service. One possible way is to use collective access, the content management system that we use, and we have a plugin for that, libscode. But even in that content management system, you have two more possibilities. Either you have your contents in collective access, you generate mark, for instance, at the moment, the input format within collective access, and then you access this mapping service for transforming to EDM. If you want to map some external records that you have on your own system, you had the opportunity actually to use libscode for mapping external contents. But if you don't have any, if you don't have collective access, you can't use libscode. Then it's just a web service. You can actually access this service by using any custom tool or any third-party tool. Let me begin with the last one. I assume you don't have collective access. And how can you use this service? For instance, I can demonstrate it with WizTool REST client application. You can make a REST client REST request with this. What you need actually is to make a post request, and you need to provide three different parameters. As Sam discussed, you need to specify what is your source format. In this case, it's mark. What is your target format? In this case, it's EDM. And of course, you need to provide your records in a single file, XML file, or if you have a big bunch of records, you can actually zip them and send that as a part of this request. Before I go and make a request, let me show you the mapping file that I use for this. These are all mapping rules, mapping commands that I'm going to use for this particular mapping. As you can see, well, we have more copy commands here, but we have append. And if I go further down, we have some put request and also if conditions that also work. And the mark record that we have actually is this one. I'm going to make a request with three mark records that I'm going to send, and let's see what is going to happen. I'll discuss this format a little bit later. The first thing is to make a post request and see what we have got. The system will return a request ID that this request has been submitted, because if you have a large number of records, we actually take some time to process them and to map them. In the meantime, the status will be set to 1, but as soon as the mapping has been performed, the status will be set to 2, so that is ready to be fetched. And if I make a GET request to the same service, but with the different parameters, of course, this will return me the status of the request that was made with that REST client. Well, we had only 3 records, so it quickly mapped them, and we have status code 2. And the next step actually is to fetch that record, because now the record is already mapped. And this GET request will return the output format. If it's a single file, we are going to get the single file. If we have sent that in a zip format, we will have a kind of zip in return containing all the mapped corresponding EDM formats. And this is against that mapping file. We can see, as Sam said, we have implemented 3 core classes, provided CHO, aggregation, and web resources. In fact, the last one actually has a little bit more about aggregation class and web resources. And we can see that if a record has multiple values, the mapping will be actually for all those possible values to the corresponding EDM element. And this is the way you can actually use this service by using a REST client application, or you can write your own in-house REST client to access this service. If I may move now to the second possibility, and that is to use Libis code itself. As Sam discussed, it's a part of Europeana project. In Europeana we have different services, and this actually Libis code plugin actually interacts with all those possible services, but we actually only need the first one, the content list, that actually provide us opportunity to generate marked records. At this moment, well, we plan actually to support different new formats as well. But the first thing that we need to do is we have a kind of list of all sets containing our own choice of actually a collection of records. I'm going to use the first one that contains 3 records, and I'm going to actually generate mark out of that. Well, before doing that, let me show you how collective access actually stores a marked record. If you can see, this is the information that will be used to generate mark out of this collective access record. So the first step in using Libis code, actually Libis code, and if you have your contents in collective access, is to generate mark out of that. And this is the mark that we have generated. As we can see, we have 3 different records. Yeah. So this is the record that was, this is the mark record that was generated out of the contents stored in collective access. And now we are going to make a request to the same service, but by using Libis code. Only thing is that we have a fixed mapping rules file that will be used in this case, because we don't have any support at this moment to upload your own custom mapping rules file, so that can be sent, but that will be included in near future. So the target format in this case is EDM. Well, we are planning actually to extend this output format as well. And if I may transform this XML to EDM, the same procedure was actually performed underneath. First, a request was made, that returned a request ID, then the status was checked. If it was already processed, that means status 2, then actually it was downloaded, and we can see what exactly it is. So we have 3 EDM records generated out of that request. Now we have one mapping file, we have 3 different records. At this moment, we use one file for all 3 records, but of course if a particular value exists, that will be included in that corresponding record. But if we want to have a kind of one-to-one mapping between one record and one mapping file, perhaps best way is to use this service with one request and one mapping file. And as a part of Europeana, we further actually will use this output in EDM to validate, to see whether it exactly is a correct EDM or not. But that's not actually needed here. So I will move to the third opportunity that I discussed, and that is we have an interface. If you want to map your own external contents, that means you will upload your records, and then you will upload your mapping file, and of course you can make a request here. You will be returned with the output. Let me select Lido this time. If I am going to make a Lido mapping now, Lido to EDM, and I'm going to use Lido mapping rules, we have a little bit of difference in both. And if I use mapping record, I'll get this output. So it actually gives me all records generated by using this service, and of course based on the mapping rules that we send. So these are the three possibilities that we can use for mapping our records. Even if you don't use collective access, you can still use this service to map your own records.
And then a little quick about the future. So what we want to do is add some other input formats. We want to use it in another project as well, and not only Europeana Insight. So we can add more input formats. For now, we think about CSV, FileMaker XML, Adlib XML, and we also want to add and update the formats that we already have. We want to add contextual classes, so the persons and the places and the concepts in Idiom we want to add, and we also want to add another export format that is specific to another project. We also want to update and extend the actions as we need to do more things with the mapping rules, so we can add more commands when necessary. Also very important for us is to add queuing, so now the server gets different requests. If you send 10 requests to the server immediately transforms the 10 formats, but we want to add queuing, so it will be put on a queuing server and it will be processed when the queue gets processed. So we don't overload our servers. So that's why we also didn't include the URL now in our slides, because you can actually crash our servers right now, and we don't want that, of course. So if we added queuing, then that will be not possible anymore with sending too much records. And we also want to add a mapping interface, because the text file is actually not that difficult to create, but we want to make it more user-friendly. And we are also thinking, for example, to integrate with Mint. It's a tool that is used in Europeana, in different Europeana projects, to convert Lido to Idiom, but they actually use underneath, as I've been told, an default XSLT, and they change it for every project. So that's actually what we made, why we made the mapping service. We want to generate that mapping and transform it with the mapping and transformation service integrated with Mint, so you don't have to have a default XSLT. So that's the end of our presentations. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Naeem. So if there are any questions, we have a couple of minutes before you want to go home. We can take questions from you or remarks, anything. If not, I have a question. Basically, I know that there are other mapping tools around. For instance, Kathmandu by Gendel, Lund. Have you looked at the possibility of using these?
Well, we looked at some of the examples, but we didn't look at Kathmandu. Most of the time, the different mapping tools only supported one format, or they were not possible to implement in a service-oriented architecture. So if there are other tools, we like to hear about them.
I think Patrick Hostenbach, is he here, I guess? But oh, there he is. Do you know? Have you any comment on the possibility of Kathmandu for this option? He knows.
Well, I think this would be a very interesting thing to see if we could have a way to do an integration with the tools you are making, with the tools we are making with the Kathmandu. The thing is, we are all processing data and creating mapping files there, so I will be very interested there if we in somewhere can exchange all these mappings, because there's where the real knowledge is, how to get data from this bad mark into a nicer way. So if it's a way to do it with your mapping files or the mapping files of others, it will be quite an interesting thing.
Yeah.
This might be the start of something beautiful. So Ghent is not so far from the...
No.
Well, it's an open source tool, and the source code is available on GitHub. Maybe we should share that.
Oh, well, you can maybe put it on Twitter or something.
Yeah, maybe somewhere.
Okay, so if there is anybody else, otherwise we can all go have a drink. And see you tomorrow morning. We start at 9 tomorrow, not at 10. So be sure to get up early. So thank you very much for being here, and see you in the morning. Thank you. Okay.